Oh, hi again, everybody, and welcome with Craig. This is where we talk about the future, where we talk about all things paranormal and spiritual and psychic and so forth with myself, Craig Hamilton Parker, who is a psychic medium. So I'm back after a little break, and we're going to talk today about some of the things that are still likely to happen in 2024. I've titled this video 5 Unexpected World Events in 2024. So these are my thoughts, and it's live, so you can ask me questions. Well, hi everyone, and glad to see you all again. As you may understand, I've been away a little while, so I've been contemplating a few of the things that are likely to happen in the future while I've been away. I've had a working holiday, you could say, tuning in while away. So we've been away in our new centre in Italy, what we're trying to develop, and we'll give you some news about that in due course. But if you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe. And if you're here as a regular, please, please, please always give my videos a thumbs up, because it helps the algorithm and it helps more people to be able to join this network of spiritually minded people. Because we've become a little bit of a community between us with the Patreon pages and the YouTube memberships, which you can all see in the description, and it's become like a little bit of a forum here on the comments. Okay, so some of the things that I feel still going to come up, and we'll talk about these a little bit more detail when we take your questions. So first of all, I've been talking about this for a while. I still feel it's going to happen. There's going to be a sudden military conflict in the South China Sea. And I've been predicting this as around about the time of the American elections in November. Now, I'm not going to cover the American elections in this video because I've already covered that. Also, Keir Starmer, which is another problematic area. I've covered that already. But the elections, particularly here in the China Sea. Now, this is going to lead ultimately to an attack on Taiwan. But I feel as if there's something going to happen that's going to be a conflict, first of all, in the actual China Sea somehow. It might involve a country such as Japan, for example. It may involve some accidental military conflict. I've often spoken about that there's some like accident. It's like possibly 2 airplanes clipping each other, or 2 submarines, I initially said I felt could have clipped each other. Something triggers an international crisis over this, and it's deliberate. It's been deliberately set up by the Chinese at a time, almost a bit like Kim Jong-un does, where they kind of test the waters. They see how far is America prepared to go, and this will be a conflict that will come at a very awkward time because it's right in the height of the election campaign. It'll be a lot of political problems associated with it, because how you react to this is going to make a big difference to the way people vote in America, particularly. And China's going to test the waters. Similarly, I've already done quite detailed videos already about Israel. But the other one, one of the other ones that I see as coming up as one of the major things is a continuation of this, the attacks in Israel. Netanyahu's not going to back down on any of the actions he's taken. I've said this before. I'll say it again. And even with protests in his own country, even with international pressure upon him, I feel there's an agenda in Israel to ultimately extend the borders of Israel, because I'm seeing the conflict overspilling into Lebanon over this period between now and the end of the year. I'm seeing it also going into the West Bank, and I feel the West Bank is something's going to happen there. There's going to be Israeli troops moving in, conflicts there, perhaps social unrest there, perhaps terrorist attacks from that area. And ultimately, I do feel that this is going to extend to the point where it becomes an actual aerial attack on Iran. America's going to get drawn into this. And again, with all the elections in the air, and who's going to be elected, and whatever happens with this disruption in the American elections before and after the elections, I see this attack happening on Iran. And I think it's coming up this year. I just feel it's still within the remit of 2024. Now, as you know, it's very, very hard to always get timings right on these things, because I'm putting this into quite a short window, really. But I do feel that this is something that I felt was coming up for this year, and I feel it's definitely on the cards in the future. I've spoken quite a lot about some of the things associated with this, like I feel, for example, I feel that Xi Jinping is going to be taken ill and maybe taken out of power, and this is going to create it's like another last attempt to rattle the saber, as it were. So I see him being ill, coming back, doing bad things, and maybe ultimately being pulled out of power. That's going to be happening. But this is more heading towards 2025, some of these things, which I'm obviously going to start making my 2025 predictions gradually as we lead up to the new year. Now, I said that last month and this month are going to be, and we're talking at this video in the time of the 3rd of September, 2024, by the way. I try to date them where I can. Now, I've been talking about big earthquakes. They've kind of happened. We've started to get some quite big earthquakes and volcanic activity and eruptions happening. In particular, Iceland went up. There's been some of the predictions I made about that I said that would be happening in Japan has happened as well. So we're getting quite a lot of earth movements, and I've been saying for a little while that this is one of the other big ones that's going to happen before the end of 2024, that there's going to be some big earth movement. And I feel it's in the Pacific area is where I feel I want to place my attention for this. I've mentioned that I felt something would happen in Japan, and although the Pacific plates are huge, I feel that it's going to ricochet from one side of the Pacific right to the other, and I get the sense that it's like it could be happening in California and in Japan, and it's like the two are pushing each other apart. There's going to be quite a big movement of earthquakes, and even seeing, seemingly near extinct volcanoes such as Mount Fuji, for example, erupting. Not full eruption, but eruptions happening in those things. So a bit of a scary time, but I feel that it's a time of where we're going to start seeing this. And I think we'll see much more of this in 2025 too, I'm afraid. Now, I always hate to bring us bad news with these things, but unfortunately the news always is this way. How often do we see any happy news? The events that happen in the world are usually pretty awful. I think when I see them as a psychic too, sometimes I see them in a kind of exaggerated way. It's a bit like a dream. A dream will kind of give you images that are kind of quite intense, as if the unconscious mind is trying to push something into your consciousness. So sometimes the things I see might need to be toned down a bit, but these are some of the things I've been feeling and seeing. Almost, like I say, it works a little bit like the way the unconscious presses images into the conscious mind. Because I think most clairvoyance comes from the unconscious somehow. But that's another thing for another question. I might talk about that in a moment, perhaps. But I also see another number 4 on this list of things. I see, I feel that there's going to be a terrorist attack on some big event, such as a concert, possibly a music concert, which is my first feeling. It could be a sporting event, but I think it's music somehow. I'm seeing a big terrorist attack on one of these things. Now, Taylor Swift has had her tour, and there were some rumbles with that. We got here in the UK, we got the big Oasis event, 17 of those coming up, which the government seem to be more interested in the ticket sales than they are in sorting out problems here in the UK, such as immigration and so forth. But they're longer term problems, those type of things. But I'm seeing something happening now. But weirdly enough, there was also connected with this, and I don't know whether this is just me, my own brain adding something on, but I saw pictures of ships. Now, that I don't know why I'm seeing ships, and so I don't know whether this has happened on a ship or whether there's something on a set of some sort that has ships on it. It looked like I was looking at pictures of the Titanic or something. Maybe it's part of the light show. Maybe it's part of the scenery or something like that. But I saw something with ships associated with this. Okay, so that's another prediction. And finally, I as my number 5 on this, and I'm sure more things will happen in 2024 as we come to the end of 2024. I've made predictions about it. Like I say, timing is very, very hard with these things, but I get the sense now that we're going to start to see, you know, the real signs of the breakup of Harry and Meghan. I know this isn't quite as important news as military conflicts in the China Sea, but I'm seeing that there's real serious possible break happening there. And I have spoken about this, and Jane's spoken about this before too. We've spoken about this, that this would happen in the long term, but I'm getting the feeling it's happening now. I'm getting the feeling that, you know, since they've had their African tour, I feel that Harry is beginning to feel that he's the spare again. He's number 2. I mean, the same thing happened to his father, didn't it? When Charles and Diana did their tours of Australia and so forth, he felt his nose was kind of put out because, hey, I'm the future potential king. I'm the Prince of Wales. You know, your role is to support me. And of course, Diana stole the limelight, often deliberately, and it caused a lot of the conflicts in their marriage. It shouldn't do, but that's how it works within royalty. Harry's been brought up with that type of mindset, and I just get the sense of any footage I've seen of him and things like that. I just feel there's kind of like a growing resentment now. You know, there's a sort of growing resentment towards Meghan, just like his father did, as I said. You know, so is this history repeating itself? I feel that Harry's feels very isolated at the moment, very lonely. Where I think when you're with a controlling person, like I believe Meghan to be, it does kind of isolate the person, and it's okay for a while we're going through a sort of an exorcism of the past. Is what he's done. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments on this, guys, because have you noticed something, and is it just me noticing things, or am I getting the right feeling about this guy? I get the feeling that it's something's big going to happen with that. We're going to see some big news. I had predicted earlier in the year, ready for 2024, I said that there would be a big kind of public argument. Now, they've had kind of minor ones that did happen, because I made those back in 2023 for 2024, but I get a feeling there's something a bit more substantial about to explode with this, because like I said, I mentioned that there would be a kind of like a big scene. There was, they had a few of those up to a point, but all couples do up to a point, I suppose. But I just feel there's signs now we're going to start seeing serious breakdowns in their relationship. Meghan has isolated him from his friends. I'm going on perhaps too much about this, but I think he's had enough of things. I think he's wanting to reconnect. There's been signs that he's wanted to reconnect with his family. And most importantly, I mean, just looking at it from a logical point of view, the money's dried up. I mean, they made their money by betraying the royal family, frankly. And they've spat all the poison they can possibly think of. And it's kind of finished, isn't it? You know, he was kind of exorcising his sense of being the spare. What a dreadful title for a book. And he was, you know, feeling I'm second place all the time. And that same feeling, I think, is coming out now with Meghan. So the steam is running out of both of their careers at the moment. They can only play on the one thing, because they're not particularly talented individuals. They can only play on the one thing, which is we're royals and we don't like the royal family, which is big news, of course, because it's explosive news around the world. So I think things have become tainted there. And I think up to now, it's been sort of, for Harry, it's been a sort of an exorcism of the past. It's been an exorcism of his sense of resentment. That's all done. He can't go on forever in life doing that. And I don't think Meghan's going to like it when he starts to want to build bridges again with the royals, and particularly with his friends and his army friends and so forth. So that's my other prediction of the 5, that I feel Harry and Meghan, we're going to start to see the breakup, as serious signs of the breakup of their relationship. So the Harry and Meghan sort of things lead me on to think about another question that was on my mind that kind of was attempted to make a video separately about, but I just feel I always like to add something kind of thoughtful at the end of these predictions, you know. So those that just want the predictions, they can watch the first part of the video. But I want to think about how young people particularly, and how all of us really are preparing ourselves for a new future, really, because are we really ready for the future? You know, so I thought I'd give you some of my kind of psychic insights into the unknown here, and what I feel is going to happen, and particularly with people that have some of the sort of typical problems that Harry and Meghan sort of, to me, sort of symbolize. They are archetypes of what's gone wrong in the world, really, you know. And I feel we're coming up to a point in the future where that many people, and it's always through all ages, but particularly in the modern age, it's very hard to know what is real and what is not. Both in the people we're dealing with, for example, the way we deal with people on social media. It's very hard to know what's real and what is not in the way media is presented to us, because it's always so edited. It always has been that way. Perhaps we're just becoming more aware of this, but we're seeing much and much more censorship coming in. We're seeing this far left agenda, Marxist type agenda, I suppose it is in some respects, that we see in people like here in the UK with Keir Starmer, for example, rule makers, cancel culture coming in. We're going to censor X, we're going to censor social media, we're going to censor whether you can smoke at a pub or not, and so forth. It's all rule making, and it's their way of trying to escape around the serious problems in the world that are not being addressed. What do you think? Comment, please. And so we're in a world at the moment where nobody quite knows what's what, who's who, and there's a lot of kind of self-delusion, and I think a lot of that's in the Harry and Meghan stuff, for example. So there's a lot of misinformation in the news, there's a lot of misinformation in social media, and even actually when you look on Wikipedia too, you see particularly psychic stuff or anything spiritual stuff or anything about near-death experiences and things like that, all very, very heavily edited, so that it's all into the materialistic agenda of a certain time of rationalist type of thinking. So all spiritual things get edited out. Very dangerous world ahead, I think, when we get this cancel culture like this, and it's very, very hard for anybody to get the facts. And I feel that what's going to happen in the future, and this is where we really have to be ready for things, is that AI, of course, is going to start taking over. It's going to start re-editing things. It's going to start republishing things. Obviously, spammers will start using it on a great deal to publish and republish, and that's just the way people, like, for example, used to pinch pages on my website and juggle it around. Now you can do that with AI and things. That's just one small example, but the whole of human knowledge is going to be compromised. It's going to get to the point, I feel, that we're going to need to look back to old books from the 1990s in order to be able to get any sense of what is actual factual evidence, because everything is going to be so twisted. And that, you can imagine how that's going to affect all of us. We are not going to know whether we're coming or going. We don't know what's real and what's not, particularly with people. I mean, like, for example, I'm a medium. I've spent what, most of my life. I'm 70 now, but I started in my early 20s, 24, 25, demonstrating mediumship in spiritualist church. I had a long history of doing mediumship, learning the hard way, learning in front of an audience and the rest of it, doing private sessions, doing circles and so forth. But now anybody can call themselves a medium, you know, and of course my field has been compromised, and this is happening everywhere. Anybody seems to be able to call themselves anything, and because of the fact that we have so many voices out there, or like you can all put comments, and some of you could be ordinary people, some of you could be twits, and some of you could be professors, but they're all equal. You know, we don't know who's who, what's what, you know. I mean, and that's good in some ways, because people do need a voice, but we don't. We've lost contact with expertise, and artificial intelligence in particular is going to take away the need for expertise. You know, it will add the knowledge for you, and you might not have any real true understanding, you know, particularly with posts and things like that. So this is the thing I think is going to be the hardest problem for the future, is knowing what's real and what is not. And the good news perhaps is that we're going to be forced to trust our own personal experience more, because that's the only way we can deal with life. We can't take anything for granted. We can't take any fact as true. We can't trust any of it. You know, we can't trust the single thing that we see on the media. We can't trust a single thing we see on this channel or any channel, because it could all be influenced by AI and things like that. So we got to start learning to trust our own experience. We've got to find our own truth. And this is why everybody expects everything to be kind of spoon-fed to them. This is where it's gone wrong. This is the great illness of the age, in my opinion. You know, education, for example, discourages true debate. It inhibits the inquiring mind, doesn't it? You know, the way education's working, it's all tick box education. It's not teaching people to think. And actually the great goal of education, to teach people to have strong character, to have good character, to have good values, to have good morals, to have an understanding of knowledge that they can transform into life experience. Because all that's got lost. It's all about, you know, we got to make sure we can pay for our education. It's costing me a lot of money. All I want to do is get a good job out of it. Complete wrong goal of education. Anyway, I'm going off again. But I think that younger people in particular, and I really do sound like an old man now, and that's terrible, but they have lost, they've become too obedient. You know, I think we look to the young to be the rebels. And I feel that people have become very, very weak in their thinking, very weak in their self-confidence. It's all about how much I hurt and my mental condition and you know, all the mental problems I have and what pills I should be taking and everything. But there's a loss of there's a loss of strength, and it's endemic everywhere. It's not just one or two. It's everybody's getting like that, because I think it's partly due to the effects of social media. It's effect of poor educational values. It's about materialism, putting money first, putting jobs first, and all the rest. And we have to change. And I think one of the things that's going to happen in the future, if we're ever ready for the future, is we're going to have to start thinking for ourselves. We're going to have to start trusting our own experience over what we're told. The camera bleeps then. So I think there is in the world at the moment, I hope I don't go on too long, but I'm going to add this before we go. We're going to have the questions and answers in a minute. But I think one of the main problems in the world is there is a mass psychological illness happening. There's a mass delusion happening. There's a mass mental breakdown happening in the world for all people, because we have lost touch with our grasp of truth. We have lost touch. We've got knowledge, but we don't have understanding. So the whole world, I think, is going, or the whole Western world, because it's not happening so much in India and China and the East. It tends to be a Western problem, this. But we're going through a mental breakdown. We're going through a period of self-pity. Self-pity becomes the norm, doesn't it? Rejection of ideas that don't align with our own ideas are just rejected. You know, that becomes commonplace. You know, if we don't so we don't learn the truth. We only keep what I feel is the truth, but that's not true. I can believe whatever I want, but it's not necessarily true. you know. So we're replacing debate with being offended. And just because you're offended doesn't mean you're in the right, doesn't mean you're true at all. The fact you're offended means it's irrelevant. What's the truth? What's the truth behind these things? So this is all tied in also with the whole woke thing and the gender dysphoria that we're getting in the world at the moment. And I think this is a psychological illness of the day, which people are scared to talk about. So we're not ready for the future. We've got weak people. And what's going to happen with this mass nervous breakdown that the world's that's caused by the internet, and mainly by internet and education, and misguided educators? What's going to happen to the world when we start getting serious problems, when the money runs out, for example? That usually creates wars, and it creates strife, and people suddenly saying, I haven't got a job, but he has. It causes public unrest. So politicians, Hollywood, global companies, the media, they've all been infected by this, haven't they? They've all been infected by this nonsense. It is a nonsense ultimately, but it's a dangerous nonsense. And the time will have to come when we have to trust ourselves, and we do have to call these things out as being misguided, because our politicians are scared to do it. You know, the Trudeaus of this world sort of embody these things. Our Keir Starmer embodies these things, and I'm afraid I have to say it too. Kamala Harris also embodies this nonsense, and it's damaging to the world. You know, it's damaging to our world, because this is kind of a Marxist extremism that's come out. But in the past, it was all about addressing the differences in class. But now it's all about addressing the differences in race, and it's all about the differences in gender, and this type of thing. And this is sort of a dangerous path, I think, because the truth again is getting hidden in all these things. Are we ready? There's lots of rule makers out there now, so our freedoms are being taken away a little bit at a time. Free speech is going to be edged away if the things that they're trying to do to X and things like that. The cancel comedy, I mean, comedians really go at people like me, and mediums they do. It's okay, but it's up to me to prove otherwise, isn't it? But you know, I think we should cancel comedy. We should laugh at everything. We should be able to laugh at any type of joke about race, about disability, and everything. We should laugh at it, because it's part of our exorcism. It's part of our way of coming to terms with it all. You know, we can't just cancel it. And I think this is a very dangerous thing. And then labeling everything that's not in this woke agenda as far right is also very, very dangerous too, because, you know, I don't see far right people in some of the protests we've had, for example, in the UK. I see people that are just upset with the fact that nobody's listening, and the rule makers are pouring in. So we're very unprepared for the future, I'm afraid. We're very unprepared for the future, because in the future, inevitably, we're going to see more wars. We're going to see more famine. We're going to see more economic challenges. And we've got a very, very weak mindset in the world at the moment. I just don't think it could cope with anything really, really serious. And you only need to look at the world at the moment, you know, the things we're talking about on this channel, the things that are happening in politics, in wars around the world. We've got a very dangerously unstable world at the moment, and very weak individuals, and also in the background some extremely strong individuals that want to step in when the weak fail. Okay, so that's my thoughts. Sorry about that, went on a bit long. I'm going to put up a short little advert now, just on one of my services, just to give me a little bit of time now to look at your comments, because, you know, you've been coming in live now. Your comments are all there on the screen. Gives me a little chance just to sort of highlight a couple of them, and I'm going to take your questions and answers. So now put your questions and answers in now, and put them in a nice clear way so that I can put them up on the screen and address some of the questions you have. Okay, and particularly also thank you all you guys that have been supporting this channel so much with being patrons and being YouTube members. It's really helping me now to be able to put much more of this content on YouTube. Okay, but anyway, that's aside the point. See you in a few minutes. Here's the ad.
Is death the end, or does a new world await us? In my book called What to Do When You're Dead, I examine the evidence for life after death. Drawing on the insights of spiritual traditions, the latest scientific research, and my own work as a psychic medium, you are shown what the afterlife is really like. What happens after death is so unspeakably beautiful that our feelings and imagination cannot come close to expressing it. At death, we enter a world filled with magical light, ethereal sounds, and magnificent landscapes that are beyond anything we have ever experienced. As we enter this dimension of the multiverse, our surviving consciousness opens to a state of blissful being that is incomprehensible to the narrow awareness of earthly life. We will all be going there, so isn't it time you read the manual to find out what it's really like? The book, What to Do When You're Dead, tackles the big questions of life, the reason for death, and the final purpose of existence. Its aim is to help you to overcome the fear of death by preparing for the afterlife. What you'll read is not fantasy or religious belief. It's based on verified information revealed through spirit communicators and from those who have had near-death experiences. It is complemented by the mystical teachings from multiple spiritual traditions and ancient teachings. You will come away with answers to many questions and gain insights about what it's like to die and awaken in a new world. The book explains that we are not the body and that after death we can travel in a body of light. The book will challenge you and I hope also inspire you to investigate the wonders of life after death. What to Do When You're Dead is available now through Amazon or my website at psychics.co.uk.
Right, hi guys again. I always feel a bit guilty putting up adverts, but hopefully you will read my book, one of the books, and that's all about life after death. And of course, when you put everything into perspective again, isn't it, with all what we live in this world, with all the troubles of this world, really, ultimately, it was just what we do and all the things that happen in this world, just a very, very small part of existence, aren't they? So anyway, thanks for your questions, guys. I'm gonna pick a few of them. Obviously, I won't be able to do everything because you've been putting lots of stuff in here. There's a UK-based one. I saw that one come in earlier, actually. Please tell us pensioners that Rachel Reeves is going to do a U-turn on WFA. I don't know quite what it stands for, but basically they're taking away a lot of the benefits for pensioners. And of course, the problem is with that one is that as far as I see this, and this is probably more an opinion than a prediction, actually, with this. But my feelings, I'll tell you what I felt about it. I think this is a purely political way of attacking those that don't vote for me. I think the attitude we're going to see in the UK here with the new Labour government is going to be one of punish those that don't vote for us. And because they've got quite a big mandate, I do see that it's going to be very difficult to see some of these pensioner things changed. Because what's been really happening there is, they've lied to us, haven't they? Really, they've lied to us. They said we're not going to put up taxes, and oh, surprise, surprise, the economy's in a lot worse position than we ever expected it to be. Of course, it's in the bad position. That's what everybody was saying. That's why an election was called early, because there was so much problems with what's happening with the economy that need to be seriously addressed. And then suddenly, oh well, that means we have to put up taxes. So there we are with Harold Wilson back in control. Pay all the council workers, pay all the doctors and things make a huge big pay rises for everybody, and of course it creates even worse problems. And this is what we're going to see history repeating itself, I feel. And it's always going to be the people that find it the hardest in society, in this case the pensioners, that usually get the heaviest kicking. I can't see it being reversed. Actually, I think we're going to see lots of problems like this, and these type of things are going to be pushed in early. This next upcoming budget that we'll have is going to hit a lot of people hard because they know they can get away with it. And what we'll see is the same old problem that happens in the past. Anybody with any money skips the country. Anybody with any brains skips the country. Anybody with any entrepreneurial skill skips the country. And we're left with a nanny state with lots and lots of rules and lots of people paying for everybody else, and a gradual decline of the UK. It's going to be a very, very difficult time ahead. And it also connects also with Annie's question here in a way. You know, hi, Craig. Can you ever see the immigration getting sorted here in the UK? And also, who is benefiting from this? And as if it would be stopped. And the problem is a lot of people do benefit here and in America, don't they? Cheap labor, for a starter. I think about it this way, Annie, all throughout history, most societies, including democratic societies, have been built on the back of slavery, really. I mean, you know, I don't want to start getting all woke about this, but it has been in many respects. The ancient Greeks, it was built on the back of slavery in their first kind of fledgling democracy. Rome was, well, I've just come back from holidays and things. It was built on the back of slavery. I mean, Britons were known as slaves. There was a slave country. We Britons were slaves, which reminds me, we should get money from Italy for all the slavery that was done to us so many years ago. So the immigration is kind of the modern day slavery. We want cheap labor. We want people who can pick our crops for us and things like that. And that's where I think and we also want people like that might vote for us as well. So there's a strong element, I think, that those type of people will vote. I think we will find they'll vote for the Labour, and Labour are also trying to sort of get the Islamic people on their side and get Islamic votes. We're not going to see it because what is in their interest to really sort it? They're not even talking about it. You know, they're talking about whether we can smoke cigarettes in a pub or not. They're talking about exam results. They're talking about things like the overpriced tickets, like I mentioned earlier, of the Oasis concerts and things like that. But nobody's talking about the main things that people are worried about. People are worried in the UK about three things. First thing they're worried about, top of the agenda, I think, is immigration. The second thing they're worried about is health and whether we can keep well or not. And the third one, I think, that's on people's minds is housing, because too many young people particularly can't get on the housing ladder. So will they sort that? Will they sort any of those three things? They're the big ones. No, let's do a smoking ban instead. You know, I disagree with smoking, but you know, it's a distraction, isn't it? I often worry about Sweden, Maria. I know that you're talking about, and I noticed a few others were putting questions up about that. So I've obviously come on a time when a lot of you Swedes from Swedenistan have been watching. I think Sweden is an epitome of exactly what goes wrong when social integration doesn't work. I often get cross here when I hear people always talk about the communities. You know, we are going to look after our communities. Why is it plural? Why isn't it just community? Surely, if we're all integrated people and we're all part of Britain, and same thing in Sweden and the same thing in America, we're not talking about communities, are we? We're talking about the community that we all are part of. And this idea of splitting it all up, it creates division. And I know from videos I've watched about Sweden, and I think anybody watching this ought to look at some of those videos about what's going on in places like Sweden, what's going on in places like Ireland as well, is that immigration is creating ghettos, really, and creating multiple societies within a society. And many of those people in the society are against the society they come into. They want the society to change and conform to them rather than them conform to the society. So I'm afraid the way ahead for Sweden is going to be a very, very rocky road, but it's going to act as an example to the rest of Europe, and I think to the rest of the world, just how bad it can get and how our tolerance has been overturned I feel, it's good to have a tolerant society. It's good to integrate people. But the problem is, and Sweden is showing this, it's the scale of it that's gone wrong. And that's why we've got such a strong leaning, for example, in Germany at the moment, haven't we? The German, what they're calling, they're associating it so far right, it's like a Nazi party. Well, I think it's ordinary people. It's not Nazi-minded people that are voting for these far right. They're calling it far right organizations. They're just right, just because problem is we got far left, haven't we? We got far less. I mean, Nazism, for example, started as the National Socialist Party, except it was obviously crackpot and desperately racist. But the problem is we do have a society where that type of mindset's going to come in, and how are we ever going to sort it? I think first we've got to close all the borders. We've got to do like some of the European countries like Hungary and that are saying, we're not letting anyone more in. The end of story. We've got to stop the free movement of people, and that means for Europe a complete change of thinking, which is the fundamental bedrock of the whole idea of the European Union, the free movement of people. But it's gone wrong, and I'm afraid Sweden, I think it's going to just get worse and worse, and we're going to see riots on the street in Sweden. I'm afraid. I think it's going to. We're already starting to see that, but I think it's going to be worse than ever. Sorry, I don't like to say that, Maria, but that my thoughts have been about that a lot. I've often, when I've made predictions, my thoughts quite often go to Sweden, because I think it's going to be one of those places that's going to be the bedrock of trouble. That's an interesting one, Louise. I had a dream where Putin was attending a meeting with his generals and his bodyguards suddenly left the room. He realizes what is happening and one of the generals shoots him and kills him. And indeed, I think you're onto something with that, Louise, actually, because I've often felt, and I've said it before, and it's not happened yet, but I still feel it will happen. I think there will ultimately be a coup against Putin. I mean, he is extraordinarily popular with the Roman, because I've been to Rome, with the Russian people. He's seen as a strong man. He's seen as standing up for Russia, but he can only really survive as long as he continues to look strong. Once you start getting weakness, and we start seeing Ukraine making moves into Russia and things like that, those things are going to weaken him. We did have an attempt at trying to bring him down, didn't we, with all those mercenary troops that he had. But I get a feeling that it will eventually come that way. I feel the weakness will come when Putin gets ill. I feel there's a hidden illness. He can't ever show illness, but I feel there's something not quite right with his health. Once that is known, once it's seen, then his generals will turn against him. So that will happen. That was funny. I saw your comment come up earlier on, actually, so I starred it. Is it the real Craig? Because, all that talk I gave about AI, who knows? I mean, it's incredible what AI can do now. For example, there's a bit of software out there that can have me speaking in another language, Japanese or whatever, and open up the channels. Great. I'm going to try that later on, I hope. But we start to question what is real. And that is our problem. We still struggle, don't we, to get past the editing and the rest of it that's happening in the world. A lot of UK questions. That's because I'm coming on sort of in quite good times for UK. How long will Starmer stay in power? He won't be in power right to the end of his 5 years or whatever they've got left in government. I think he'll be pulled out of power. Something's going to go, well, so I said before, that something's going to go wrong. I didn't anticipate it was going to happen quite so quickly, because I think we're seeing a lot of public discontent. I don't know whether I look at the wrong sort of sites, but I'm seeing comments everywhere that seem to think that Starmer has had it. People are angry that they're not getting what they voted for. Isn't this always the same with all the politicians in the world? They don't do what it says on the tin. They do the complete opposite to what we vote them in for. And that's why we get so much public anguish and unrest and anger at what's going on. And we see clampdowns all the time. I saw this question come in too. Will Telegram's Durov escape jail and France? He's another you know, I mean, I don't know much about them as a person. I don't follow Telegram, but Telegram's another one of those important little oases in a way where people can communicate without feeling everything's being watched. And of course, the problem is it does lead to sort of the propagation of crime when we have that as well. But what's more important, crime or free speech? Because we can always shut things down in the interest of crime, can't we? It's an easy one. It's an easy one to say because it's a place of criminals. We can't have YouTube because, you know, there's people on here that would tell you how to make bombs and things, you know. So no, we have to police things, but we have to also allow freedoms. I think he will escape jail. I think he's too hot a potato. This is a shot across the bows, I feel. Oh, that was another one, Venezuela, because a really difficult time happening for people in Venezuela. I don't see Maduro being overthrown at the moment. I think he's going to be in power for a while, and I know a lot of people really upset by what's going on there because we've got some pretty crackpotty sort of politics going on there. But my feeling is, no, I don't see him being overthrown immediately. You could pretty much say pretty much leaders in South America get overthrown at some stage or other. But if we're talking about the immediate future, I don't feel that's the case. I get the sense that there will later on, perhaps in 2025, be a sort of a deal done with Venezuela. And I feel that Venezuela, that is, my camera bleeps again, but Venezuela is a country that's got a lot of potential. It's, of course, not only its oil resources, but everything else that's there, and its people and its property. I've got a friend that lives in Venezuela, and they've been telling me what it's like there. But I think there's a lot of potential for Venezuela, and it needs some money injected into it. And I get the sense that Venezuela's future, although it looks pretty bleak at the moment, I get a feeling it's going to see some pretty good years ahead as we move into 2025, late 26, 27. I see money going into Venezuela and a rebirth of some of its industries and its exports and things like that. So I don't think it's all bad news for you guys there. But I know it's quite hard for some people there, and it's become quite a dangerous sort of world to be in. I know it's politically, people are worried about assassinations and all that sort of thing. So anyway, I think we're going to have to come to the end of it. I've been going on very long today, and I thank all you guys again that have followed the channel very much. You know, particularly those that like come on today. You've been sat and listened to me, and we've been able to discuss things. And thank you for allowing me to make and watching right to the end these long videos. It's great to be back. Things are going well with our hopes and plans for our spiritual center that Jane and I ultimately want to make. And again, if you want to support me in this channel, do particularly think about, you can go and buy my books. I put the advert in, it's all in the description, but do think about becoming either one of the patrons or becoming one of the YouTube members, because I put little bits of extras up for that. I'm going to put one up in a minute. And also most importantly, it just helps support the channel and helps us to do what we're trying to do and gives us the time to do these things. Again, all right. Thank you very much, guys. We'll see you all soon. Bye for now. If you look back at my earlier predictions, and in particular the predictions I made on the newspaper, The Sun's website, I did actually say on there, the actual words were, there will be a flu epidemic linked to bioterrorism.
And my thoughts are that Liz Truss will make it to the final, be the next PM. I think she will actually have a final battle between her and Rishi Sunak. We've not seen the full end of Boris Johnson either, I tell you. But Rishi Sunak actually will eventually, I feel, be the next leader of the Conservatives. So I think there's going to be a few conflicts that Britain's going to be drawn into, including I think Russia is going to take some moves against Ukraine. I think she will make it past her platinum jubilee, which comes up this year. But I think after that, we'll see a sudden and quick deterioration in the Queen's health. And I think we might lose the Queen towards the end of 2022. There's going to be a huge backlash from over the Netflix programs and screening, because I feel it comes out at a bad time. Charles will come to become King Charles, but his reign, I feel, will be short. I said that Prince Charles would be hit by an egg. And of course, there it is, all in the press today. Marvellous person she is. She does something extraordinary that could even put her life a little bit at risk with the way she did this. Okay.
Is there something also there that's not been spoken about fully? Did they also discover something with Kate that wasn't quite right?
A huge swarm of people knocking the doors of Europe and America. And I feel that Ukraine conflict is going to be a kind of a grinding conflict that goes on and on. I also feel that there's something going to happen in the Middle East as well. I feel as if there's going to be a sudden and unexpected thing happen in the Middle East. So I feel they're going to take it into their own hands, and I feel we're going to get a strike from Israel. This is going to be one of the significant things in 2023.